Good evening, everybody. Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 433, and tonight is more theme oriented. Although we may get a little background on Rich Parsons, who is the first time being on FMA Discussion, and returning for, I believe, the third or fourth time is GM Dan Anderson. Three or four, I'm not sure. One of those. This could be the fourth time. Any rate, but so tonight's going to be on, if you saw the title, the gray area. And what does that mean? Really nothing. It's just something that kind of came out of my mouth in a conversation with Rich and Tim Hartman on his show. And I kind of brought some questions because Rich was there. And I kind of just was interested in his take on what I thought maybe was, again, quote unquote, gray area stuff. And that stuff being, which we're going to talk about tonight, is the curriculum. And so in the curriculum, and in addition to the curriculum, it's congruency to the black belt test. And did that change throughout the decades, pending the curriculum changes? Was it congruent throughout the decades? Also, we're going to be touching on the single Sinawali and its transition to Tappy Tappy. Again, I'm not saying any of this is significant. So hopefully by the end of the show, folks will get more clarity. And plus, these guys get to be heard and state their opinions. And that's what it's all about. So without further ado, we got Maestro Rich Parsons. He could be a master. I'm not screwing that up. I should have asked his title. And GM Dan Anderson. And here they come. Hey guys, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it's good to be here. And hey, Rich, it's funny because Dean, I just talked to Rich like maybe 2 weeks ago on assorted things, this, that, and the next thing. And, I think it went from a 5-minute call to about a half-hour call, Rich, something like that.
Yeah.
That's generally what happens. So Rich, anytime, I don't talk to Rich as often as I should because I absolutely love sitting and yakking with him, especially when we get technical because we're both kind of geeks that way. And we can really just get into just major geekdom. And the only other thing is the gray area. Take a look at the top of his head and his and both of our chins. Okay, that answers that question.
So there's the gray area, folks, if you're watching. So there should be no confusion now about the title of the gray area. We just established that. And so, so what kind of, again, those who listen to the intro, it's just something that kind of came out at the tip of my tongue. And again, I really wanted to get the opportunity. Rich was there, so I wanted to get his take on things. And I was pleasantly surprised some of his offerings that he mentioned. And I really liked the way he explained things and articulated them. And I thought he'd be a great addition to the show.
Well,
and so, So without further ado, we're going to be jumping into it. If you're watching, tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. If you have questions, put them on the right-hand side. I will get to them. I promise. And we got folks already watching. We got Robert Small from Missouri. We got Andres from New Jersey. And Eric O'Brien, that crazy guy from Florida. All
Hi,
right.
guys.
So you guys kind of heard the intro. So, okay. There seems to be, like, I guess, when I was talking to Rich, this, again, not to beat a dead horse in the ground, this unclear or gray area as far as what the curriculum was and how it manifested through the decades in that. So let's maybe go into that before we get into the whole test. And we got time. We could probably touch upon the will, which I found fascinating, the amount of people he had in there. I was just like, wow, that's a lot of people in the will. So, and we can touch upon that, whether or not it would have been significant if it was in fact implemented and all that. So let's first get your take, Rich. I'm going to swing it over to GM, and then we'll have him follow up since you're new and this is your first time. So curriculum. Okay. So is it gray or am I incorrect for coming out with that phrase? I mean, is there some gray area if you're an outsider looking in, or if you're an insider?
There were people who started in the 70s who didn't do the empty hand forms because Remy hadn't introduced them yet. Okay. So if they froze their curriculum at that point, then they wouldn't have the empty hand forms. And if later, when Remy rolled out Tappy Tappy in the 90s with that variation of or combination of strikes and sequences and locks, then they may have had the bits and pieces, but they may not have had that particular drill, right? Or that teaching platform, however you wish to refer to it. So if you were isolated or happy with what you had and continued with it, then yes, there would be some incongruency there. If you had missed something at a seminar and you just didn't quite get it, or at a camp and you didn't cover it because you didn't feel like it, then your students may not have had that exposure for a while, and it may not have necessarily been brought up at future seminars or camps until maybe a test. And then at that point, it might have been addressed. And then as to the testing requirements, there were the schools that existed prior to the Michigan summer camp in '87, and they had curriculum that was written down, and it was usually kind of an agreed upon thing. They'd show it to Remy, and Remy would say, yes, I like this, or no, let's add some more of this. And that happened occasionally as well. You might say, I want to see more of something, or more variations of something. Post the '87 camp, those that didn't have a curriculum already used the black belt test, I believe, as their original primer. Not everyone, but I know of enough that did. And they tried to keep up to date with that, with either getting new copies or doing check-ins. And then they would notice, hey, look, now there's, instead of 3 empty hand forms, there's 5. Instead of 5, there's now 6, and then later 8, right? So those types of things did occur. So was it 100% set in stone and never changed? No, and that really wasn't Remy's way. But was the essence of the principles and the core there? Did you have your basic strikes? Did you have your disarms? Did you have your numerato? Could you do his signature style moves and techniques? Yes. Most of that was pretty consistent.
I'm going to get back to you because there's a couple things you brought up really interesting. I'm going to piggyback off that. One is the students may have gotten some material, may not, and I'm going to ask this later, but the effect on the future generations potentially. I exercise potentially.
So here's an example. Let's say I take really, really good notes. Sometimes I might sit down and write up a whole sequence of notes on a series of techniques, but the seminar or the camp continues going, and I miss 5 minutes, 10 minutes of instruction.
I tried that at like Larry Harpsell's. It never worked out well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I know that happens. So it's not a negativity to anybody who does that.
Sure.
Please understand that. I'm just saying it could happen to that point, right? So it wasn't saying people missed it on purpose or they just didn't understand it. It was more of a, hey, I'm going to concentrate on this. This seems good to me. I like this, or I'm having a problem with it and I want to get it down. And then later when they go to reconstruct it with their partners or other people, they just aren't able to get it flow right. And then from there, they have to retouch. And depending upon how many times they saw somebody who could cover that, they may missed it for a while. And that while may have been months or a year or so. Or
potentially put their own stuff. I'm saying potentially. I certainly, wouldn't.
That's always possible. Somebody puts their own touch and feels on it. That happened everywhere.
Yeah, fill the gaps, right? Okay, so let's piggyback to GM Dan. So kind of the same thing I first asked Rich.
Okay, so my take on it is that, okay, let me pre-frame something here. So when I look at a curriculum, I look at it in the same way as, let's say, American education. You get your kindergarten, you get your first grade, second grade, third grade. You don't go to the third grade unless you've done the second grade material, etc. And now, did Remy have an actual curriculum? Oh, no, absolutely not. Did he have a shopping list? Yes. The shopping list occurred, first time I saw the shopping list was the first camp that I attended, and I can't even remember which year that was. And it had a list out of, so you get your basic strikes 1 through 12, then you get your blocks, then you have your disarms, very much like Richard said. Now, the fascinating thing when you're talking about where things added, et cetera, there were certain technical phases that Professor Remy went through and emphasized. Now, see, I started in 1980, so there was a lot more of the insertion of the classical styles. We had a lot of rompida, rodonda, bande, banda. Based on those, we had these give and take flow drills, etc. Then it slides a little bit more into 85, 87. And he starts getting into the what he calls the semi-free spark. So we have certain patterns that we're going back and forth, shifting over to the left hand, bing, 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 so forth like that. Now we start morphing over into the 90s, and we start getting into the what I call the block capture bait counter lock of the tappy tappy. Now the original tappy tappy, and Rich would recognize this 100%, was actually the numerato or the abecedario of Balintawaka Screma. You know, you got your strike, you have your twirl out, the guy hits back 1 through 12. Bam, that was the original tappy tappy, way before any kind of locking material, etc. So in terms of curriculum, was there something that was needed for yellow belt? Was there something that was needed for blue belt? Was there something that's needed for purple, red, brown, blah, blah, blah? It wasn't defined by Remy. No. In fact, I would bet dollars to donuts that somebody else had actually made the shopping list, had given it to Remy, and he would go, oh, that's very good. We will use that. You know? So now there are those of us who ran schools. You know, I mean, I've had my school for 38 years. So after my first seminar, and everybody, and you mentioned that you're surprised by this, but one of the things Professor Remy always did was, okay, now you go back and teach. And you're kind of going, oh man, do I even remember all this? But, you know, like Rich, I was a voracious note taker. But on top of that, I was a failed cartoonist. So I would draw all sorts of stuff. I mean, I've got the first 7 annuals drawn, hand drawn. I've got techniques hand drawn. So I'd be over off in the corner, like that, kind of keeping my eye out here. Geez, I better get back on the floor, you know, because he's doing something new. And so anyway, from there, when you talk about were there alterations in, let's say, the black belt test list? Yes, depending on what phase he was going through, good. It would add in. Now, as he was stressing certain things, other things would drop out in terms of importance of stress. When I first started, we were angle stepping like crazy. We were doing the dance. We were Fred and Ginger. I mean, we were moving all over the place with the give and take drill and so forth. Well, you get into the later 90s, and everybody's pretty much standing still, you know, when you're doing the block and lock tappy-tappy variations. And are they all modern artists? Well, absolutely. For me, you know, and I'll just mention this for me, but for me, modern artists consists of the entire package. So you have what was, well, how do I put it? You have what was, let's say, later added, because Remy was growing. Remy was always putting together stuff, etc. And as, let's say, he developed B, A was pushed slightly backwards. And then he developed C. Well, A and B didn't get as much stress and so forth. So that's how I would answer that question. And then, you know, the black belt test morphed as he developed.
As he developed. Okay. So.
As he developed, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. No. I appreciate both of your intakes on this. So.
And one thing I will stress is that I'm coming from a Pacific Northwest viewpoint.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah.
As opposed to travel to.
Yeah. No, that's important.
Seminars, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. No, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So am I mistaken then? Because obviously you guys clearly know better than I do. So it wasn't the transition from Singawali to Tappy Tappy. It was Numerato. Am I mistaken?
Rich, let me go first just for a half second. One of the things that I noticed was that he would use single Sinawali as an entry point into the semi-free sparring or the tappy configuration. So you'd be going ding, 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 ding. And then at a certain point, you would meet the canes and then maybe, okay, we start off with the puños. Or you'd be going ding, 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 you'd capture, then you'd strike, they block and capture. So single Sinawali was still a basic base part, but he would use that as an entry into a lot of stuff.
So initial platform of the four corners and then segue into something else?
Segue into kind of what he was developing at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Fair enough. Rich, so am I mistaken? As far as tappy replacing single Sinawali, it sounds like it just progression thereof.
It's not the single Sinawali. Single Sinawali was, as Dan said, the entry point. So it was solo baston semi-sparring was the term that was more used often that I heard. But it started out with a single stick, single Sinawali platform box that allowed you to enter, practice various techniques of breaking in, practice various techniques of moving back and forth in a flow type drill, and then practice a couple different techniques to exit out and get back into your box drill. And then it wasn't like he changed it and said, oh, I'm going to change that. He rolled out tappy, which was a forehand followed with a backhand block to them. Forehand, they strike the backhand, they strike the forehand to you, you block it. So that replaced it in its emphasis because it got people moving and doing a strike block give and take type mindset. The strike block give and take mindset was on the 70s curriculum in the Flint area. The issue with that is that it didn't have a formal set. It was more of a just move, have fun, play with it a little bit. Don't kill your partner, but still, use control. Rocky, after our discussion, Dean, messaged me a few things. And one of the things he asked me to share was that in the 70s as well, there was a similar abecedario, but it was Remy's abecedario, where it was Remy's 1 through 12, or a variation with removing a few of the strikes, strike block. And then due to the complexity of getting everybody to know all the strikes, to know all the blocks right away, it was harder for him moving around. So in my opinion, this is my part now, I think that he pulled that back and used the Singleton Wally's solo baston semi-sparring as a way to get it, because people were learning the Singleton Wally. He could use that as the box platform. Same thing with the 6-count or the 6-count Dicadena, the chaining of it was another box platform he rolled out in the 70s. But most people end up just trying to race through it as fast as possible, even though there was footwork involved. They thought the best form of it was speed, and it is good to get speed, don't get me wrong, because it shows that you can work together and adjust. But when one is moving at a comfortable speed and the other one's fighting for their life to make sure they don't get hit, then they're not really learning or able to address and adjust. So
yeah, they're making sure they're not getting hit. Yeah.
Right. So there are disadvantages to just going fast. Plus, if you want to learn when to move your other hand to break in, it's harder to do that when you're moving faster than when you're moving slower, because you can play $6 Million Man and go get that timing and spot to get you to move together, and then you set that beat or that pace to do the insert, and then of course you can speed it up from there once you both know what you're working on and how you're going to do it.
Okay.
Let me add one thing as a difference in viewpoint between me and Rich on the give and take. And the give and take drill, yes, it had no formality to it whatsoever. Absolutely correct. My take on the 6-count drill is that it was actually the first counter-to-counter drill that Professor Remy taught us. No matter where you were, use a Remy phrase, no matter where you are, you're there already. we would be moving, and no matter where you were, you had to respond from that position. So whether you were doing, let's say, a counter strike to the arm in a slashing form, so you didn't bust up, or you're back further out and you went bang on the stick, you'd be going ding, 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 back and forth, and you would be working your footwork, etc. Then we slid into the 6-count drill, which Rich is absolutely 100% correctamundo in what he said there. Is it was another drill that taught counter for counter. It had footwork, but everybody wanted to drink about 5 cups of espresso prior to doing it, and then just rip through it, probably so they could smell the burning rattan or something. I don't know. But the thing is that
Not a bad smell.
I kind of liked it, but but one of the things that I saw was a really interesting common thread in the technical evolution of modern arnets was Professor Remy was always putting together counter for counter type of things. The give and take drill was the first counter for counter drill that I learned from him. Then we slide into the 6-count drill. Then we get into the semi-free spark. Then we get into the tappy, and a solid core was I counter your counter, you roll, you counter my counter. And my thinky think on it, and if he were alive today, trust me, I would have a book full of questions for him, because
I'm sure as well as many others.
I don't know if he set it up that way or if he just figured out a better way to teach that concept. But it seems like that was a real common core to what he taught. And it doesn't matter when you're learning it. Like I said, I started in 1980. Some guys started in 85. Some guys started in 90. Some started in 95. But there was always this counter for counter thing going on. And by the way, Rich and I are talking on this and so forth. I want to say hi to everybody all the way up to, I think.
Yeah, I got to catch up on these comments, make sure I didn't miss a question.
Yeah, and and Frank Sikorsky mentions here, the professor taught us the 6-count variation in my apartment before going to the airport. Absolutely correctly true, and it was that variation that lit the light bulb over my head on what he used to say, no matter where you are there already. It showed me no matter where you are, you had an option. That was in Frank's place. So there you go, Frank. Yeah.
All right, we got a bunch of folks watching, and I'm just making sure I'm not haven't missed any questions. Okay. I can't watch the whole thing. All right.
So some of these guys are shucking and jiving with each other on the comments.
yeah, they're going back. Yes, I noticed the shirt too. All right. Okay.
This is Chad's shirt. This is
yeah. It looks familiar. That's for sure. Okay, so
Dean, can I say something real quick?
please do.
I apologize to everybody else.
Back and forth, which is just wonderful. This is why I like talking with Rich, because he says something, it sparks me. I say something, bam, it sparks him right back. Rock and roll. What's up, Rich?
I was just going to say, right as you put us into the waiting room, I had a technical problem. My internet went down. My laptop was offline. So I quickly rejoined to my phone. So I don't have all the interfaces you guys do. So all those who are watching, thank you. If I don't hit like or respond to your comments, I apologize. I've got a minimum interface.
Yeah. No, no worries there. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any questions here. But okay, a lot of questions have popped up, and I don't want to bounce all over the place. So because I have OCD with that. People wouldn't know it, but I'm things have to be very in order. I start getting like twitchy. But
people with OCD want to do CDO, but I'm dyslexic, so I do ODC.
Yeah.
And I'm bald, and so there you go.
So it doesn't matter. So here's some of my questions, though. So I'm just going to say these out loud in no particular order. So, well, before I get to particulars, this, of course, will be for both of you. And it's something I thought about. I didn't mention to anybody because I didn't want to bring up another area of question mark and then create controversy for no stupid reason. But as a result of what you guys brought up, I think it might be worth bringing up now. And I guess my thought was back then, and still is, and kind of reignited, is did he grow so fast and all that? Did he not only, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just thinking out loud here. Was there an aspect where he might have been losing control of the curriculum by letting others suggest, give, because of his growth so fast and the fact that he was going around geographically speaking the states all over the place, he's doing camps, he's doing seminars, he's staying over people's houses, he's getting input from freaking everywhere. Is it possible that things were starting to get away from him? Is that fair or possible? Whoever wants to go first.
Rich, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You can go first, please.
Okay. No, he didn't lose. He didn't lose control of the curriculum because he had no curriculum.
When you say no, okay, let's define. Okay, fair enough. Let's define that a bit. Okay, I appreciate you're saying no curriculum. When you say no curriculum, was it just for the folks that are watching, so they have, I guess, a little more clarity on this? Was it that it wasn't universal? In other words, despite where he went geographically, people weren't getting the same thing? Or was, when you're saying no curriculum, it was more a matter pending the setting where he was teaching at, whether it was a seminar format, one-on-one, a camp, he would basically just bring an outline what he wanted to cover in that particular scenario?
Remy wasn't that organized. Hey, Kelly, how you doing? Remy wasn't that organized.
So then what did he do?
He taught in a fashion what I call the confetti method. You take a fistful of confetti, you fire it in the air, whatever landed on you, landed on you. Now, he had certain core things that were common to modern artists. Okay. So you had the 12 basic strikes, which went to very exact areas. You had certain type of blocks. You had like umbrella. You had, and then you had certain types of classical things that he inserted. And then there was his empty hand stuff. So like Rich was talking about, we had the empty hand años. He had the cane años. So there were certain things that were common, that would have been common to seminar or common to camps. But in terms of anything that's kind of structured, bing, 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 no. Now, did things get added? Remy was a sponge. He would come across something, anybody, and he would scope them out, and bam, he would pick them up. I think the most obvious thing was, I remember what his joint locks were like prior to meeting Wally J, and then after meeting Wally J. Prior to Wally J, they were painful, etc., but they were larger actions. After he met Wally J, and they were just painful as hell. But so the thing here is that when you look at, did it confuse him? No. Or did it get away from him? No. Did he get excited about certain areas of development? Oh yeah. He had his hot topics at whatever stage of the game that he was at over the years, and he punched that hard. So that's how I would put it. Rich, how would you put that?
I'm going to disagree with you, Dan. No. The only thing the disagreement is I think he had his curriculum from the Philippines, which was in his published books. Problem is it wasn't readily available, and making copies and distribution of information was, people had access to schools or colleges and were able to, scam a few extra sheets of paper off a copier or mimeograph, right? Or some places at work occasionally as well. So I think that was part of the constricting factor. Hi, my name's Rich. I'm an engineer. I'm a systems engineer by trade, so it affects everything I do. I'm just explaining that for what goes next. So I try to look at everything in the system, including people. And in the 70s, Remy came over and he was very concerned. He basically was, at odds with their leader, Marcos, in the Philippines. They confiscated his ambassador passport and they threatened him. And he came to the States on his own personal one before they realized it and took that away as well.
That's putting it very lightly. That's putting it very lightly, Rich. That's spot on. But you're being real light about it. That's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to, without going down a rabbit hole for something else, I'm trying to get to the point as well, but set the frame. He had family members that were working with the government because they didn't have the options, right? Here in the States, you had a much larger, even though they were separated by islands, you could still take small boats, trains across islands, and so forth. But here, planes and long distances were the issue. So regional centers came up, and then the American ego, doesn't matter which culture it came from, the American melting pot ego, where if someone else saw a technique name that wasn't something that had already been discussed by Remy, because somebody either wrote it down or added something, or they had it as a combination of their Taekwondo and modern arnis, and they may have had two lists, but they saw the Taekwondo list as well. Well, the Tang Soo Do people are like, I'm not going to deal with that. That's all wrong just because they saw the Taekwondo, right? Mm-hmm. And the same thing with karate or kung fu,
Kempo,
right?
or
Kempo, or yeah. So the not invented here mindset, I think, was another case. So his mindset of losing something he'd spent a lot of time and effort building up, and then when he would run into it, he would run into the issues of people getting upset about it not being invented where they came from. Because one of the things Remy did was he made you feel great. He had a personality and a charm. And a lot of people really looked up to him above and beyond his just skills, just because he had that presence, right?
I've heard, yeah.
So they could feel threatened, they could feel concerned, they could feel bothered, and in all that, they would want to. They would say, "I don't think that's right," or they'll say, "I'll work on mine." And by the time they leave, he's now got 2 lists, or he's got to go somewhere else, and he's got 6 lists. And he didn't have. I mean, he did, because sure, what do you want? I'll take all the commonalities, put the list on the side. Here's the data. You decide, right? But I think there was another piece to it that I didn't realize in the 80s, which was, I think English was his 4th language.
Oh, okay.
It definitely wasn't his first language. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he never worked hard on his English to get any better at it. So,
right.
The entire time he was here.
Reading a lot, which is why I think other people had to proofread certain things that were done for him or with him. Okay. He may have done dictation, he may have approved it, but I think other people had to read it back to him. If it was, he knew his numbers. He could count the number of people in the room, know how much the cost was, and knew what his cut was without a question.
Well, that's most important.
That's not speaking negatively. That's just speaking as an intelligent business person, right? Okay. Well, then, but trying to sit down and concentrate and put together not only terms, but phrases and descriptions behind it in a language that's probably your 4th language, because he spoke Visayan Cebuano, probably Ilocano, and Tagalog, which was the national language, and English. So I really don't think it. I mean, I can say a few words in Japanese and French and Spanish, but that's a few words. If I practice for a while, I can go read a few phrases or words if I'm traveling in those countries. Right. But if you were to flash it in front of me right now, not using it,
right, not practicing it daily, sure.
Yeah. So putting that whole system together, losing the one that he'd already built, so there might have been some internal fear there. I can't swear to that, because by the time I put that together, I couldn't. He was gone. I didn't ask him. The not invented here, so trying to get people to organize, work together, I think was an issue.
Huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me
Yeah,
let me bring up just 2 points really, really quick. And number one is that this is the kind of disagreement that I love to have with Rich, because man, we'll just talk it out. We'll just talk it out. We'll just be chatting back and see. And I've got a little bit of a disagreement with what he was saying there, because we had trained. It's all good. It's all good.
Well, I presented as a theory.
And the example that I use is that we had both trained under Ted Buat. Now, I trained under him in an eye blink. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if anybody was the baby of Balintawak, I learned enough to spell it correctly and know that he lived like in the Detroit area. And Richard trained under him for many Mondo years. But the difference is, let's say, and I'm using Manong Ted as an example, the difference between the two individuals in their mindsets. Teddy Buat was an engineer, and so he was precision oriented. My God, his precision was amazing. And Professor Remy, he was a fighter from a small town that had a good idea about, he loved Arnis. How do I get this into the schools? He leaves all this head knocking, banging stuff when he leaves Anshan Bakon from Balintawak, and he's got a great mind for the essence of business. But was he a technical guy? Absolutely not. My first lesson with Manong Ted, we're spending 45 minutes how to do the proper body mechanics in a strike. My thighs were burning at the end. So what we have, Rich is laughing. Yeah, does that rekindle burning thighs, Rich? But anyway, but so now we're talking about the personalities and how they approached things. And this is where I slide back to in terms of, Remy not having a curriculum. Remy, and I say this affectionately, he was a roughneck and thug. He was a fighter. He wasn't a geek like me or Rich. Man, we'll geek out on this stuff. What's the proper angle on this? Nah, you're off about 2.5 degrees. Oh yeah, 2.5 degrees. That's right, etc. So that's where I come from on that. And again, like I said, I'll scream to high heaven. He had no curriculum.
Curriculum. No, and you know what? Obviously, it worked for him. I mean, look to the magnitude what he did for spreading the art, getting into different schools. So obviously, it worked.
That's a totally different subject, and he was brilliant at that. He wanted to spread Filipino culture, and my God, I don't know if anybody's accomplished anything like that almost in any martial art than what Remy did with Filipino martial art.
I would tend to agree based on all the interviews I've done. His name is definitely in the top 2 or 1. I mean, as far as that concern, I guess the whole thing with not having curriculum. Again, it's I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm just obviously it worked for him. I mean, who the hell am I to say whether you should have had one or not? You know what I mean? But it sounds like all right. So let's get to the black belt test. So obviously no ranking curriculum. In other words, yellow belt, orange belt, whatever other belts they had, they're all up to black belt. So I guess my question to you guys is, as far as the black belt test, was there congruency, even though there was no curriculum, but was there congruency to the particular levels? In other words, on that black belt test, there's certain things that you're responsible if you're going to transition from yellow to orange belt, for instance.
As far as the Pacific Northwest goes, no. What you had was the shopping list. Everybody did the black belt test. I mean, everybody did the same test. Those that didn't know the material scooted off to the side. Once we got into material they knew, boom, they scooted back in. And who tested for black? It was who the old man said tested for black. Oh, John, he is very good. He will be, what is this? He'll be testing for black. Are you sure, sir? Oh, it is true. He was testing for black. Okay, boss. And we'd sit on the black belt testing board, and then the guy would go on the test, and however he performed was however he performed. And then at the end, more often than not, the person either got not really probationary black, but he would be told to come back and test if he really stunk up the joint, or am I going to get comments on that one? Or he'd be promoted to black. And but everybody, yeah, same with me, Kelly. Everybody, Kelly Warden just said I had never tested. My test was
Here's something.
Anyway, but yeah, but that's my short answer on it. Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah. I really
Rich.
like what he's saying here, Kelly, and then we're going to get to Rich. But I really like this subsystems. Like this makes sense to me. Okay, maybe not curriculum. I'm going to bring subsystems. That resonates with me as far as the seminar. Where I could see that. Obviously I wasn't there. And blended systematically the creative curriculum for the U.S. Okay, that makes sense. We got
Tim saying,
weren't his
because
videos,
there were stresses on each seminar, etc., as to which way he was going, one way or the other. But was it structured in step by step by step by step?
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it. But but the subsystems, I can relate to that, and going there. All right, weren't his videos an example of his curriculum? That's from Tim. So I get, and then let me just see here, make sure they're coming flying in, these comments. Trying to keep up, guys. And Kelly, we saw that. Yeah, he never tested, was on the floor. Okay, so, all right, Rich, what say you on that as far as the black belt test and pending the belt you're going where? Was it clearly identified on the black belt test or the test, whatever that covered, what you're responsible for?
Yes, I tested at the Flint Dojo, which had a long history. And it was clearly defined what a yellow belt was, what the green belts were, the blue belts, and the brown belts.
Now, Rich, was it defined by your group or was it defined by the old man?
It was defined by the group and approved by the old man.
Thank
you. The statement was a yellow belt had a lot of material. A lot of people thought it was way overrated, but they expected people to understand what the term was and to kind of swing a high forehand for a number one and a high backhand for a number two. Did you expect perfection? No. It was, do I know my ABCs? Do I know my 1, 2, 3s? Can I start communicating with people? And that's what that was. And then the green 1 belt was a little bit more concentrated, the same with green 2, blue 1, and blue 2, and then brown 1, 2, and 3. You would pick up, but like difference between brown 1 and 2 will be very similar, but then there was like some improvements in certain areas, but it was called out what areas it was expected. Same thing with brown 3 was a complete review of everything. So a lot of the alternating belts were like, yes, cover what was new for that belt and everything previously. So therefore, there wasn't anybody forgetting.
He did account for some of the changes through the decades pending.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And it actually started in the 70s as well, before the decade thing. But it helped address that as it moved forward, because you were still covering the old techniques as well as the new favored or emphasized drill sets or techniques.
I think that's great that he did that. Now, you mentioned something that was interesting where you guys in Flint, you guys kind of created a test, you presented to him, he approved it. Did that also happen geographically in other areas? So in other words, I guess what I'm getting to or alluding to is, were some of the tests different depending on where you were?
Yes. So like I said, after the 97 camp, and that kind of became his lead camp, or not 97, 87 camp in Michigan, people were cribbing off of that test mostly. But prior to that point, people would either get tested by the shopping list, as Dan said, or as Kelly says, the subsystem, and the packets that were presented. And then he would review it and say, yes, you might be this. Now, were there people who may have had a missing subsystem or packet who got a belt where someone else at a different area knew that system and got a lower belt? Yeah, but they might have performed at a higher performance level per Remy.
So he allowed allowance based on how well their attributes. I mean, this guy is just, his attributes are freaking cutting edge, but maybe he, didn't remember part of the orange belt, but man, he's moving like a green belt. Fair?
Right, but and in that area, there may not have been an orange belt or yellow belt.
Okay.
Well, no, there just might have not have been a curriculum listed.
Okay.
So it just was like, hey, we're going to go over these things. And it's like, man, he's got disarms down. And he's got a couple of throws down.
Maybe he's just shining. Right?
Yeah. And he's really good at it. So we'll give him a green 1 versus a yellow belt. Whereas in someone else in a different area might have gotten a green 1 with a totally different curriculum because their subsets presented for them at that time period was different for their 6 months of training.
I think that's, see, this is why I'm so glad we're doing this, because this is stuff that, again, that is coming out. Like, I'm glad, he would ask up to the test that perhaps when the change is, so when the students go to teach, and well, hey, and there's other people there that got this material and he doesn't have it, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't have that? So it looks like he made a concerted effort to make sure people were relevant.
Right. And think of it like a funnel or pyramid or whatever. The closer you got to that brown 3 and the black belt, he had a higher expectation of you knowing what was being expected, right? So
yep.
if you sat down on one thing at a camp test, yeah, you still might get a black belt. But if you sat down on multiple things, you're down in the browns, right? Because unless it was like some of the later forms for 6, 7, or 8, but you got the first 5, yeah, okay, all right, you can still get your black belt.
Okay.
But it was, and I think that allowed for some of the Filipino mindset of, hey, today I want to work on this, and tomorrow or next week I want to work on that, and allowed them to keep the cultural training methodology. And so after a few months, you give somebody a step or a rank that they acknowledge that they've been there for a while. So if somebody walking in the club, they can see that somebody's got more knowledge than nothing. And then, but was a green 1 or a green 2 consistent between, Connecticut, Florida, Chicago, Flint, Pacific Northwest, or South California? Probably not. Were they a lot closer in the brown 2s, brown 3s, and black belt?
Yeah, I think that's probably what's important. Maybe the lower, depending on what he's changing, adapting to. How frequent was he in that area? Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I mean, that's another thing too on to talk about. Like, obviously, if he's going to Texas 10 times a year, well, I bet you those yellow belts are going to look better than the ones in Connecticut if he went there 4 times a year. So I think there's got to be allowance for that. But much to your point, going up the pyramid, when they're getting the upper belts, then there needs to be some, they need to look sharp. I just want to catch up on, there a couple questions came in before, and
good answer, Rich.
Kelly is coming up with some great, that was,
I totally disagree, but good answer, Rich.
Good, I gotta laugh. My buddy Renee. Yes. Rolling Dog.
I don't totally disagree, but I had to get that laugh. We were getting too serious.
And then we got, I'm almost done, guys. Hold on, bear with me. And we got GM Renee. All right, this is a good question. This is something I was going to ask. You know what, though? I'm going to throw this in now. And this is from Phil. I think, all right, here we go. Okay, so Phil's question is, what are your views regarding how the systems have changed? Well, this system have changed. What was taught to you both, and what would evolve into what now new students have been shown now by new instructor? This is what I was going to get into, like new instructors today who maybe didn't get 70s material, didn't get A's material. And I think this is kind of where he's going. So there's some parallel I was going to ask. Who wants to take a crack at it first?
I'll take it first.
Sure.
Anytime you add human beings into the equation, you're going to get change. See, the thing is that let's say Rich and I trained under Remy at the very exact same time. We had our first class together. We rocked all the way up to black belt together. Well, Rich and I are going to have a little bit different expressions. Rich is larger. I'm small.
Right? Yeah.
I'm smaller. I worked in a print shop many years. Hey, this guy was bouncing for a number of years. So there's certain amounts of experience that he had there. I was a karate guy. So what you have is you have somebody who taught, let's say just for fits and giggles, a forehand strike, just a single forehand strike. Well, you get down later on, okay, it's going to vary depending on the guy's experiences, on the guy's attributes, on the guy's size, etc., and their mindset. Now, you take, let's say, a new instructor, okay, meaning wasn't taught by Professor Remy, maybe taught by Rich, maybe taught by myself. Now we have another human being that's been added into the mix. And what is their experience level? Not meaning are they black or not, but I mean their life experience level and so forth. I think a really good example would be the difference between Kelly Warden and myself. Okay, we both grew up in the Pacific Northwest, both grew up roughly at the same time, but Kelly's bigger. He has different life experiences than I have. He will have different stresses or different areas that he stresses. Oh, Kelly's awesome. Kelly's great. But he will push what he does in a certain direction. And then his guys. So let's say you go with Belton Lubas. Okay. Belton is one of Kelly's guys.
Sure.
He's smaller than both of us, for crying out loud. So he's going to shift it according to his mindset, his experiences, etc. So what you're going to get is you're going to get, coming from the same tree trunk, so to speak, but it's going to go depending on who the instructor is. So, that, and I think that happens with every single martial art. Doesn't matter what it is, or it doesn't matter how utterly structured.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
You put a human being in there, it's going to change.
100%. Rich, what's your take on Phil's question?
One, good question. So some of those, let's just say, trained strictly in the 90s, are the last 5 years Remy was alive. They may not have seen as much of the classical styles with the Bandya Banda, Abaniko, Rumpidov, figure eight, up and down, right? They might have seen them. They might have done a quick drill with it, but it wasn't as emphasized, and they may not have had the same exposure to them. Another one that was very popular in the 70s through most of the 80s, but by 89 through 93 was being faded out for concentration at the lower belts, which was when you learned how to strike, you learned two ways how to strike. One was strike, the other one was strike through. So you had impact and blade. Okay. And so the blade work came later as the time period came along. So the later in the 80s, I saw it getting pushed out more and more at the emphasis for early belts, no, later belts in the colors, yes. So definitely required by the mid blue belts or just before brown. So therefore you were in the brown belts had the full exposure to that type of mindset. But yeah, I saw that there was some differences. But as Dan says, some of that is school interpretation. Some of those are interpreting what Remy was concentrating on and changing what they were doing because they wanted to make sure that if he's concentrating on it, it must be important. So therefore, we don't want to look bad and not be able to show that, right? So not justifying anything, but expressing an opinion and providing some data that, I do think some things may not have been as emphasized, and maybe some people weren't exposed to it, depending upon the model they trained.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of variables here. I mean, obviously, he's traveling how many 50-something weeks or 40-something weeks a year based on the previous interviews. Geographically speaking, he hit more areas frequently based on who's bringing him in. Obviously, those folks got more exposed to stuff than somebody that he was going maybe twice a year. And that. So I think there's a lot of variables that come into play here. And we got Phil has another question. Phil, that was a good question from before. Thank you. All right. Have you ever been shown a technique or drill under the same name and been shown something completely differently? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
he didn't. He just it was Bandya Banda was always Bandya Banda. The compress elbow was always the compress elbow, etc. I didn't experience that.
Reverse hand, backwards throw is the only one I clearly know of.
Okay.
where you take the wrist and you move it back and you throw them backwards. But I think that had more to do with the regional instructors. And Remy just said, do the wrist lock, do the wrist throw. And they, the one where he falls backwards. And so some people said, oh, he wrists, so he's moving his wrist backwards. The other ones are, oh, you reverse the hand. So and maybe the term he used at that time in that school or that seminar, and they ran with it. So it gets back to Dan's point of, was there a curriculum? Yes, but no, because it wasn't written down like what we would consider a consistent curriculum.
What we consider nowadays, like, oh, we got, here are the levels, and
Yeah, and let me bring up a point actually that there's written down here a very good point that Ty Botting.
I was just gonna put it down.
He goes, I think sometimes folks are saying curriculum and meaning different things at different times. And then he goes, and this is really important. Curriculum can include both the idea of a written progression and or the concept of having expectations for knowledge of material, written or not. So you've got this two-way thing here. Ty, that's a great point to bring up. I tend to slide towards the written progression, and Kelly in a later statement is much closer to that second point, and or the concept of having expectations of knowledge of material, written or not. So you get more of a conceptual type of thing. So I just want to bring that up because I'm reading all the comments on.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to keep up with
really great comments.
Definitely want to
Kelly, I nailed it there. Kelly's nailed it there a couple times. So and Rod's asked a couple of good questions. So there you go.
Yeah, I can't believe the amount of people are watching this in the comments coming in.
I think they're waiting for us to have a fist fight. Let's see. Rich is over to that side of the screen. Okay.
We got Kelly. Let's see. Okay. All right. Professor, how many individuals are missing in the police connection in their stick and empty hand drills? He responded, ain't very good. I teach them to forget. Perplexed by that statement and someone. Oh, interesting. Okay.
He'd say stuff like that.
And wait, actually, there's more to it than someone. Hold on. Wait. Yeah. And let me just scroll down here. That should be moving up. I'm not sure why when I put it there, it's not showing his entire. Well, let me just. That's disturbing. What's going on with that?
Well, let me follow up because I can read it. Because he goes perplexed by that statement and somewhat shocked. I said, "What the hell does that mean?" And then he goes on. Professor Lafton said, "Quote." Some comprehend only the lesson in front of them. To them, that is what they believe to be the truth today. They become stuck and cannot blend the art, so I must teach them as though the art has changed, yet I am only trying to advance that understanding. To be real, the art must progress daily in a natural flow. It can be an effective section by section, but the blending and flow makes it complete, end quote. I can't disagree with that. No. It's just, again, I'm not kind of step-by-step progression guy. I want to know what's for yellow belt. Anyway, you're going to say something.
To use Ted's point on that, and she said he was more particular, precise. He said, I'll teach you this move. Well, that move then became your backup move when he taught you a new one. And the new one became your more preferred move. And then you would have preferred moves, acceptable moves, and backup moves. And sometimes the backup moves were when you made a mistake, or just they were there if you got caught by surprise or whatever. So, because they may not have put you in the most optimal counter spot, but they were still very valid counters, right? So they may not have been the optimal or preferred position where Remy would say, yes, you are learning and you can do that. Not in the negative way, but in the positive way. But so there are things that the student has to understand that sometimes, yes, we're having you strike 12 inches from somebody's head at the out here by the shoulder because your control is horrible and your wrists are flopping around. But later, when you've got your strength and your control under, you can place it right here by their head. And the person standing there is letting you do it because not only have you built the trust between you two, but you've demonstrated your control.
Yeah,
right?
Right. Most of yeah, exactly.
And so, as Dan had said, the tightening of the circle. Well, even Wally J said, when you start out, give your opponent a lot of room, right? So that if they make a mistake, they don't break themselves on your technique. And Remy did the same, right? Where he's like, oh, you must give them room or you will hurt them. Whereas then if you did it too quick and too tight, they didn't have a chance to react and you've broken a wrist or a finger or something else. Mm-hmm. So, but then the concept of, well, why do I want to do it at a black belt level? Why do I want to learn it at a yellow belt or a blue belt level first? And the answer is, can you explain to me differential equations, and can you do some second order derivative calculus for me? Well, no, because you need to understand the mathematics behind it. You need to understand what the formula is. And then, so you need to back up and go, okay, 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 3. And then they go, well, yeah, everybody knows that. And I go, really? Okay, 1 + 1 is 2, why? And they go, it is. I go, well, why? I go, so if you're willing to trust that, then do it this way. Put your block out there so you don't get hit, because it is. It's what happens. Later, when you understand that you can draw a number line, divide it into base 10, so you draw 10 segments and go, we're going to label it for each one. So now 1 segment + 2 segments equals 2. Now you understand that that's the proof for it. But you can't do the proof in kindergarten, right? But you can understand the memorization and the concept behind it. So once again, hi, my name is Rich. I'm an engineer.
I was going to say, man, engineering is pouring out of them now, which I think is great. I think
my name is Rich. I flip burgers at Burger King.
No, I think the analogy is great. Yeah, I'm just catching. I'm pretty caught up. Okay, so what many people don't realize is that, yeah, right. He was on the road, exactly, and his art progressed intentionally in an effort to stay interested. Like it or not, innovation was a byproduct of staying motivated. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, he's on the road. Like, I mean, I can say a lot of things about that. The frequency that he was traveling and teaching. I mean, one, burnout. Two, having to reorient himself. I mean, constantly on the weekends and bring that energy, bring that innovation, bring the changes with enthusiasm. I mean, I can't even imagine the frequency he was doing that and still have that level of energy that I've heard so many times about him. I tell you, I do a few seminars in a month and I'm like, no, I don't want to do anything the next weekend. And this guy was just pounding out. Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
Dean, there's a funny aside to that, because more than once have I seen him at a seminar, and at the very end, we're all in the circle and he's got the camp promoter and this is my good friend, silence. He can't remember the guy's name. And, you're traveling that much. You have different camp hosts each time.
Your brain shot.
Yes, Rich Parsons. Yes, I bought a cut. It is my friend, Rich Parsons.
Yeah,
so that had to wear like crazy.
Oh, I couldn't do it. I'm just telling you.
So
right now.
if he could do that, it's like,
yeah,
more power. But yeah.
Yeah, there's just no way. I mean, as Ty Bond said in episode 321, he's Renee with the episode quoting. When it comes to instructors, there are master alpha teachers and master beta teachers, depending on when they trained or came from. Fair enough. I love the quote of the episode.
I was testing at a very young color belt.
Progression is traditional. Robert Small. This is a very interesting. Everybody was taught differently by. All right, let's see what you guys think about this. Coming from Tuan Bobby. This is very interesting. Everybody was taught differently by Manong Remy. So each of you had created your own curriculum from what we were shared with and taught by. So is that fairly accurate? Creating the own curriculum within your school?
Well, what was in the statement was actually a question mark. This is very interesting. everybody was taught differently by Manong Remy? Okay, so that's actually a question. And I would say not, he pretty, in the Northwest, he taught everybody pretty much the same. It's kind of where we went with it. You know, so I think he taught pretty much everybody the same, but, you know.
Slight variations based upon trying to reach a person I could see, but it was pretty consistent between the different schools that I attended and the seminars I attended. It was very, very consistent, but did everybody learn the same thing at the same progression of their learning at the same time, like month 2 or month 6? No, not everybody learned it that way. But did they learn the same, to quote Kelly, subsystems or packets or laundry lists from Dan? Then yeah, they learned that curriculum piece at different times. But that curriculum technique became a point to learn, but it didn't have to be similar. Like school A was yellow belt, school B was green 2, right? Now, I was going to say earlier, just side note, there was a black belt test in our school, and I was doing a color belt test, and they had me do some technique, and it was like a series of 5 or 6, and I did them. They were talking amongst themselves real quick and catching up with Remy, and then I turned back and I said, 6 knife disarms completed, sir. They all looked at each other. Did you catch it? No. Did you catch it? No. Remy said, he looked serious. When the other black belts were going, yep. So they said, okay, sit down. And they reviewed everybody else because of my attitude.
So he didn't. So he didn't see it.
No, he didn't see it, and the other black belts didn't see it either. So it was one of those things that, you know, I was used as a partner for others, so he would obviously saw me, but he wasn't going to make me do it again. But that was one of the interesting points that. So.
And on left turn at Albuquerque, Kelly read my mind here because he posted up here.
Circle 10.
Possibly absorbed differently based on your technical insight. I was just going to comment on that, and he read my mind. He put that up there, and there was that factor as well.
Sure,
people absorbing at a different rate of insight, experience. You know, when I met Professor Remy, I was already 14 years into martial arts, 4-time national karate champion. So I had a wee bit of a head start in terms of moving my body, seeing how things go, et cetera, than the poor raw white belt that started out, which hand do I hold my stick in? So there is, that aspect as well in terms of like absorbing.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that in conjunction with frequency, if he was going to these places more often than another state, I mean, they're going to be, definitely farther on the curve. Yes, the post-seminar depression. Remy said, is that what it is? But it's adrenaline stress overload. Yeah, I'm just telling you right now, I couldn't do it. That's just remarkable, the pace he was doing. Yeah, not this guy.
For what Dan had said, and which was a follow-on from Kelly's comment.
Sure.
This goes to both of you guys. So obviously you've taught seminars. You've been at the seminar. You talked to the person or multiple people later who were at the same seminar, okay? And you only said the one thing, right, on the topic. But they both come at you saying that you said something totally different. And they had both walked away understanding something completely different. I've had that happen to myself. So I know that it must have happened to others.
Sure.
And just because of the human condition, right? Which validates Kelly's point there, not that it needed to be validated, but that people's absorption rates are different, but also their perception rates as well. because what you said may have resonated totally different with somebody, person A, than with person B.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, right? Regardless of what's okay, me. All right, hold on, Phil. I'm just gonna try where I can fit that in there. What I do want to get to is this is fascinating, by the way. Both of you guys. I mean, comments speak for himself. So and it's not me, due to me.
Rich is calling me names under his breath. You just can't hear it.
So
This is interesting, but this is fun, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get
That I can't
come
see.
back. I'll backtrack because I got some notes written down while you guys were going. All great stuff. But what I want to get into, why did he bring Tappy Tappy into play? What I mean, was it their need? Was he seeing deficits in his travels with students? Was he looking for a newer, improved platform to convey what he wanted to the students? So why the transition to Tappy Tappy?
Boy, that's, I can only guess and just say, okay, this is my thinky think because I never asked him. I think part of it was keeping people interested because, he had various stages of developments. One of the things is that an area that he liked was he liked joint locks. He liked locking with the sticks.
Okay.
So while you're in motion and you're going ding, ding, back and forth, okay, here was an approach that went into joint locking with sticks and using the other person to capture and so forth. That's kind of my read on it, but that and $5 will get you a cup of coffee because I never asked him. So
yeah, I'm curious.
This is what Remy meant. It's like,
yeah. Kelly saying it was his connection to Blintawalk. I mean that.
Let's ask Rich. Rich is a Blintawalk guy as well.
All right, yeah. All right, Rich. Go ahead.
Rich have great
Bill,
insight as to the combo between Blintawalk and modern arnists. Yeah.
So I never asked, so I don't have a direct answer, but I do have insight. One of the things Remy always tried to do is to find a way for his people to spar, semi-play, controlled movement of sticks, so people could play, learn, and move. He enjoyed that. It was kind of like the Curatus from the Blintawalk environment, where two people could come in, move semi-randomly in the mixing bowl, and then go, yep, you got me there. Let's go back and review that. What do I need to do to address that, right? And then, as Dan said, yes, he loves joint locks. And with the joint locks, not only empty hand, but with stick, now he's able to do two things he likes, which is hang on to a stick and joint lock somebody, right? And then the box frame that was called out by Dan as well earlier is very Blintawalk-ish because it is the 1 and 2 off of the Bisidario for Blintawalk. So I think Kelly's point is a valid point. Once again, doesn't need my validation. I just agreeing with him there. The point I'm trying to make, though, is I think it was a lot of things, including the fact that once he got people to be able to move like that in that drill set, he introduced the left on right. So then now he could start doing more of his left hand stuff and forcing others to practice their left hand and offhand as well. So instead of being awkward left hand on left hand, now you had a right hand and a left hand. So therefore you were able to improve your cross-body training. You could train your left side to improve your overall performance, depending upon which school of methodologies you follow for that. And then, but it also fell into things that he loved. Blintawalk and modern arnis, the thing he created. And also being able to flow. And it allowed him to present things that he cared about and loved in a format that he could share with his students and followers, and people could be happy.
Yeah, and I think
Hold that thought. Let me add one thing, and that the semi-free sparring he also introduced left-hand patterns and so forth. It wasn't quite as late as Tappy Tappy, like the 90s Tappy Tappy. So he was still doing that in the 87-ish, something like that. Anyway, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, no, I mean, you brought up an interesting point, Phil. Like sometimes we get so caught up on like, making sure they have the material and all this, but it sounds like he wanted that play to come out of folks. And I'm wondering, with that play, was he trying to tap into folks' creativity?
Yes.
I would say so, as well as trying to get people to catch up with him. I've got my own thinking. He's probably frustrated as hell that he couldn't play with anybody. In fact, let me give you an example, and it was one of the most brilliant teaching examples that I had ever received from him. We're doing like a 6-count drill, and I don't know why. I don't know where it came out, but we're doing this, and he does the number 3, and I disarm him. I'm kind of going, oh, geez. Oh, Anderson, you're going to get killed. And he looks at me, picks up the cane and says, Danny, that was very good. There's only one problem. You forgot one thing. I am left-handed. The cane was in my right hand. He goes, dink, puts it in his left hand and just takes me to school. But the thing was, he didn't beat on me. It was kind of like, good. Let's get a little bit closer.
Let's elevate the tempo.
And I think a lot with the Tappy Tappy was that part of it was like he was finally getting to a point where maybe he could play, because the thing is, this guy handed us our ass like you wouldn't believe, and even 20 years after he's been in the U.S. teaching people, it's like getting him up to where perhaps instead of only being the instructor, hey, he could have a bit of fun as well. So
I think it's great. That's what he made it for, or one of the reasons. Tim saying Remy taught Tappy Tappy in the 80s, but not many people could wrap their head around it. Later, he figured out a better delivery system on the material. Okay. And that's all right. And then, we got comment from Kelly, Kenny Smith, Chuck Oss, and several other instructors such as Datu Dieter, Datu Tim, even Fred Shadian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, discussed the logic of the Tappy Tappy Balintawak as a science approach to close quarter engagement. He fought in real time, and yes, as Rich states, left to right. Okay. Hold on here. Comments are coming. Just bear with me, guys.
I noticed that there's a lot of comments here. That's good. That's
good.
It
is. Yeah. I mean, like I had no idea this was going to be this popular. Left to right, truly loved. I'm sorry. They're not showing the full thing when I show them on here, so I have to. Left to right, Remy truly loved the Balintawak, but never wanted to offend the Balintawak people. Okay. And then we got Chad. He said, yeah, if you're not having fun, we're not doing it right. Fair enough. Okay, let's get into what Tuan Bobby. You're all lucky to have that special connection with Manong Remy. Keep Modern Arnis alive. I was thankful that I got the bug from Manong Remy, and then I got it signed by him and Mr. Airy. Am I okay? And Salamagur, yes. And Tuan Bobby, offer stands anytime I want to come on the show. You got the green light, so you just got to let me know. But thank you for jumping in.
I totally agree with what Tuan Bobby said. We were really lucky to have that connection.
Didn't show everything.
Hands on hand. I mean, hands on.
Yeah.
With somebody that skilled. Oh man.
Yeah, my respects to Datu Kelly, Datu Tim, Jim, Dan, Jim, Rich, and PG Ty. See, they're not showing everything. I have no idea. So I have to make sure so I don't shortchange. And Kelly Warren, last comment. Nope. I agree with Tim. So Tim's comment from the 80s, they couldn't wrap their head around it. 90s, they seem to. And I think this is the last comment. I'm caught up. Kelly's 100% correct. It's all about the Balintawak influence. That's why Remy opened the door for me and others to work with Manong Ted Buat. Okay. And that's So that was also that was kind of the Balintawak connection for you as well, Rich. Ted
Yeah.
Watt. Okay. Hey, let's go into that bit. It's kind of relevant. The inner workings. One help the other, benefit, better understanding of the arts when you were doing them.
Yeah. So in 1987, when I went down to pick up Remy to bring him up to Flint for a seminar, and then the following week was going to be the 87 summer camp, so I was going to drive him down to the camp. I went and met Rocky Paswick, and we went to the airport. And obviously it's 1987, so we could just walk in, meet him at
Yeah, you're not. Yeah. Good old days.
So he knew Rocky quite well. We walk up. Rocky says, "Hey," he goes to give him a hug. I grab the bag off his shoulder. They exchange pleasantries, and then the first thing after "Hi, how are you?" was "Show me what Ted has shown me."
Oh, so he wanted some insight. Oh, okay, all right. So obviously he was.
And there was some back and forth between them, but it was all friendly and enjoyable. Rocky has stories of like he would work with Remy, and then he'd go see Ted. Ted would say, "Oh, here's how you counter that," and then go get back. And he was like, "I was a ping pong between the two, right?" So we need to get Rocky on here as well to tell his story of that.
But the offer was extended to him.
Yeah.
He was given the offer. Another green light anytime he wants to come on. I want to just get this question in. It has no relevance. Kind of a
can I mention something about that? Because Rich had mentioned something about the relationship between Remy and Ted. And I got this story from Bobby Sullivan. And he wished he had a cell phone because Remy
recorded
it. Yeah, because Remy had met Ted, I think, maybe in Detroit or I don't know where. But the key thing was they went off. Then they came back. And, I'm sorry. Bobby T, not Ted Watt. But still, the friendliness there. And it's like one of them's going in. This is like Remy had left Balintawak, 5,000 years prior to this. But they get together, comes back, and Bobby T is saying to Bobby Sullivan, says, "Oh, the old man still got it." Remy talks to him later and says, "Oh, he is strong." So the thing is that there had to be this really good core Balintawak relationship between the two guys, despite the fact that Professor Remy had gone one way and Manong Ted had gone the other way. A Bobby T thing, but it emphasizes that camaraderie from that core group.
Yes, sounds it. I mean, it sounds like it could have been a nice package in the future. All right, Robert Small. Let me get to Phil. Rich, did we meet Flint?
The name seems familiar. Probably. Okay. I would need to see a picture. I apologize.
No worries. Remy would ask me the same question from Tim, so I'm on the blunt talk. Okay, here's let me back up here. Here's something. When I get to Phil's question, this will be for both of you. It's almost it's almost he deserves to have a movie made on him. And I'm wondering if there's any work towards that, or if that's been brought up. But it just seems, more. It's funny. One thing about doing all these interviews is it's incredibly educational. In the area, I could probably say 100% with confidence, is probably Modern East. While I always heard about it, I never understood to the magnitude upon doing the interviews of the reach he had, his persona, the impression he left on people, the spread of the art, and everything. I had, again, if it weren't for these interviews, I would never have gotten that depth as far as who he was and the absolute magnitude of influence he's had. So I'm just, I just wonder if that's ever been talked about, having a movie, or a documentary, done on him. It just seems fitting. But with that being said, here's Phil's question on McDojos. Here we go. So this question is, what are your thoughts on how McDojos have made martial arts appear to look non-martial artists and beginners?
Oh,
completely. So
let me go on my soapbox on that. And the change in the culture in the United States from 1966 to now has helped change from, let's say, this viewpoint of martial arts to martial arts on an equal footing as baseball, soccer, badminton, underwater basket weaving, and the like. And so, the question here, it's not only the McDojos that have made martial arts appear to look non-martial artists and beginners, but the thing is that now we're competing with all these other sports because martial arts are no longer exotic. You see, when I first started karate, it was, Bruce Lee had just come out, and prior to that, the karate thing was James Coburn and Armand Flint giving the guy a judo chop on the shoulder. It was, you go in the back of the comic books.
Or Billy, right?
There's the bully. He kicks sand in the guy's face, and he does the manual. Yeah, exactly. So it went from this brilliantly exotic, defeat all attackers with no this, that. And it's finally morphed to, my son has got Little League lessons, so can we take a break? I mean, it's played, so it's not only just McDojos, but it's across the country. This is what we're competing with. And as long as we're now no longer exotic, man, we're on the same playing field as everybody else. So I would love to blame the McDojos, but trust me, with the society the way it is right now, you can't get into an honest fist fight anymore. In fact, some of the looks that I've been shooting Rich, he could sue me for harassment.
Yeah,
that's where it's gotten to. So,
yeah, I'm sorry. Nobody's owning my savings account. They're not owning my house. They're not owning my car. It's not. But here, check this picture out that was just sent to me by Dr. Tim. I think you guys will enjoy this. All right, it's got clear up. There we go. You guys see it?
I have a copy of that.
I don't see it.
You don't see it?
It's the one of Ted and Remy sitting
I know the table.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
It looks. What year is that about?
94, 95.
And Remy passed away when?
2001.
6 or 6 years later. Okay. Tim, Datu saying 99 is.
Oh, it's 99. Okay, all right. Tim would know more than I took it.
So 2 years later, unfortunately. Wow. Okay. And when did Buat pass?
2005 was his stroke, and he passed approximately about 3-4 years later.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm just catching. Okay, guys, let me just make sure I'm not missing on Remy. Okay, same with Remy and Bobby Tabata. I guess they had a relation, right? Yeah. Remy had no equal. So Dr. Tim is saying accidental or incidental. Okay, from Dr. Kelly. And Phil's no laughing at me, Phil. I took the Dr. took the picture. So Ted passed 2013, July 4th. Oh, Independence Day. Oh man.
I was looking it up. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So I think there's another. Wait. All right. Okay. Here we go. Here's another kind of another question from Phil. All right. How much do you think FMA has become more noticeable in more filming these days in action films? Would both of you choreograph if offered? So would either of you be in a choreograph business if you guys were offered?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think FMA has become more noticeable a little bit. I mean, because there was Tom Cruise, one of his Mission Impossibles.
Yeah.
You get what 5 seconds. You get knife work in one of the Bourne things.
Look at the Bourne.
That was extended, but was that identified as FMA?
But then go back to the hunting.
To the common person, it might not have been. The sticks, yes, but we need more of it, because the thing is that, and this is what I run into teaching at my dojo, is that in my community, and I don't go out and do demonstrations, et cetera, and make it more well-known, more popular, but nobody knows what FMA is. Nobody knows what Filipino martial arts. They know karate, they know judo, et cetera. But the closest thing is, do you do Kali sticks? Or a
I'm just so glad it's getting a push over there due to Senator Zubiri. Getting the school systems where it's not taekwondo and basketball, even though I hear they're still very popular, but at least they're trying to make it come back in their own national sport, and I think that's just absolutely phenomenal. And but hey, I agree with you. It's making the films. We can only hope it's going to continue, get more exposure, and grow. I mean, what say you on that? Would you jump in the choreograph, Rich? Huh?
Qualified, yes. The qualification is,
come on, who wouldn't?
All right. Well, here's my biggest problem with action movies. The industry spent $1 billion developing a Steadicam that can go across the screen and not shake. Now they in purpose input vibrations with quick cuts to give a blur.
Oh my God! You come from the engineering background.
I'm coming from. Me and 5 people went through a plate glass window. I rolled over hoods of cars. I've had my butt kicked. I was on the inside. It was never that shaky. Okay.
We gotta get you. Okay, we gotta get you hooked up with somebody. We gotta get you you bring in your engineering background. That is going to be. I love it, man.
I will bring other assistants who are in the industry to assist me in coaching me.
What is the drive for the modern martial arts, professional combat sports, government contracting, movies, etc.? All right, so here's a question for Kurt. I'm just making sure I'm understanding it correctly. So if the golden age of American martial arts has passed and the exotic mystique is gone, what is the drive for modern martial arts? Question mark. Professional, combat sports, definitely in the combat sports, right? Government contracting, movies, etc.
Okay, I would say that just on Kurt's question, and Kurt, that's a very, very good question. I love it. The golden age hasn't quite hit for FMA yet. The golden age hasn't quite hit for FMA yet. It has for a lot of American martial arts, and luckily.
Can I just interrupt you quick?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, because you hit something, and I like what you're saying. You don't think the pinnacle has come yet. My only question would be why and what's coming down the pike, do you think?
The pinnacle hasn't happened with FMA yet because the movies haven't gotten people sparked. Back in the ancient days, okay? Bruce Lee, the Green Hornet.
We need another.
People are looking at Kung Fu and so forth. Then the Karate Kid comes out. This was a boon to a lot of karate studios because now kids are taking it, etc. Then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Where can I find being a ninja? And then we finally slide into MMA, which is great because all the hard-headed guys are now going there and not bothering me here wanting to beat everybody up. But the thing is, that hasn't happened for FMA yet. There hasn't been something where you have, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes scattered through the movie, and the guy's going, well, Manon, what do I do? What do I do about this?
Yeah,
well,
there's no storyline.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so broad public knowledge isn't regarding FMA, or isn't the same as regarding karate. Everybody knows karate. You say karate to anybody, and all of a sudden they're chopping.
No, it's a household
noises and so forth. Yeah. So the thing is the golden age hasn't happened yet.
MMA is a household name. Here would be my counterpoint. When I look at FMA in Hollywood, all these guys coming out of it, and rightfully so. There's no negativity towards them, deservingly so. Coming out of the Sound Academy and all that, and I guess what I'm wondering is if it hasn't happened yet, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right. If it hasn't happened yet, with them being right next to freaking Hollywood, and you got this freaking like a farm team, if you will, where you can pull from. What do we need to get to there? Like, what is missing? What haven't we done, or for instance, to get there? Go ahead, Rich.
Go, Rich. I don't have a good answer for that. Not an educated one.
To lead up to this, first of all, Xena, Hercules, dead people doing Redonda and double in the background. It was never a major part of the main characters. They were just in the background doing something, right? But it was a good step. The movies have come forward. In '93, there was a magazine that said, please submit a tape for a martial artist for a movie. They couldn't tell you the movie. They couldn't tell you what they were going to do because it was hush hush. So I got a video friend of mine to make one, and it was actually me and another guy, and I sent mine in. He kept his, and I got the rejection letter. And on the rejection letter, it said, I really liked you twirling the balisong knife, and the fact that you caught the blade and continued to pass it and catch the handles again. They said that's not what we're looking for, and your empty hand techniques were too tight, too small, and wouldn't show well on camera.
Oh, they wanted bigger. Okay, you know what? I can. The balisong, I'm not sure about. I don't know. I think maybe they were just whatever. But I could definitely see the point on the end. If you were really tight, compact with your movements, I guess my argument would be the Wing Chun. But anyway, yeah, definitely the Jason Bourne series definitely counts on this.
Yeah, and I didn't mention it because it had already been mentioned, but so my belief is that when you see Dog Brothers or some of the other leagues that are out there that are maybe using pads and the armor that are getting more and more events, and some of the crowd participation for wanting to watch it, I think then yes, you might see a peak after that. But until then, it's still mystical. But either they think it's too simple, it's too complicated, or it doesn't show well, or it's too threatening. So, and some people have said we need to get the F out of FMA and just present it as martial arts.
Know what, though? I think that's a value. I think there's value in that argument. And again, not to reiterate, I'm just wondering, like, again, with them drawing upon the producers and the choreographers from the Sound Academy, like, man, like, wouldn't it happen by now? And I hope it does. Like, I don't want to be right. I hope it does. Or do we need to go into another lane? Like, maybe besides the action pack, and of course that's what sells today with all the new tech and all that. I don't know, dramas. I don't know if that's going to be that's going to sell, or historical. Like, people are so action packed these days. They want to see the incredible technology being displayed and utilized, and so
from a historical point or a documentary, as you mentioned previously about Remy, I think it would be a great idea.
For him,
I don't think it will succeed if it's done by a student of his.
It would. I think it would have to be, right?
No, it won't.
we have too many conflicting viewpoints. Get
Because
somebody from
everybody
the
would say,
outside to bring
no,
it in.
that's
Yes.
not wrong,
yes.
that's
Okay, I got a suggestion though. I got a
But if
suggestion.
But if the producer, the money person, was totally outside and independent, had no contact with modern Arnis, then there's a chance of success. But if the
Okay,
producer,
so modernities can't be involved.
correct,
It has to be an outsider coming in, or the idea is presented to an outsider. Outsider comes in, interviews people.
that's my opinion, just because of people being involved.
I don't think it's a
I'm
bad
with
one.
Rich, 100% on that.
Yeah, I don't
It would be
think it's a
somebody
bad one.
outside that wouldn't be amidst any of the any of the reindeer games. How's that?
All right, I think we got another question in, and we do, from Chris Chu, son of Bruce, Uncle Bruce. All right, do you think the FMA community will embrace the broader communities wanting to do more FMA? I find there are still a lot of traditionalists who think it needs to stay a small thing. I'm going to answer this first because those who think that, they're actually going to put us in the grave. Well, no, it's getting watered down, and we're going back to the backyard days, and we're going to do this. Well, I'm going to tell you, folks, you keep that mentality, do that, and I guess what? There are systems that are going to die out in a couple decades. Okay, it's going to happen. So now, taking that fact, now throwing into the loop of not wanting to do it or saying that backyard mentality, it's not going to do us any good for progressing FMA or perpetuating it. So, Chris, here's my answer, and I'm going to turn off these guys. We definitely need to embrace the broader scope of the community. If not, more systems will die out. There's my answer in short. You guys take it away.
Case, speed answer.
Speed.
Yeah, I think definitely embrace the broader communities, because the thing is that if they want to learn it, they want to learn it. So you teach it to them. I mean, it's if they don't, they don't. I think those of us who run classes or schools, I think probably the smarter thing is reaching out into the community and presenting it in such a fashion that they go, oh yeah, this is cool. I've always been curious about this. I'd like to do this. So anybody who has either got an FMA school, of which there aren't like tons, or FMA classes within their schools, I think this is going to push more FMA. Worrying about whether somebody is, let's say from a Shotokan school, okay, can we get these guys involved? Yeah, I don't know. If it's if they want to get involved, yeah, absolutely. I don't think it'll change things. I don't think it'll hurt things.
I think it needs to happen. I mean, this whole and the reason why I mentioned what I said, because I've talked to a few folks on the channel here, whether it was before the interview or post interview, and some of them have this mentality of still keeping it this backyard. I'm telling you, folks, it's not going to do us any good. I'm telling you, that's just my opinion. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree that the backyard will have the systems disappear.
Yeah. Yes, it has.
Here's my thought, and it's a business plan. If you want to embrace the other organizations, many of the organizations need to be open enough to embrace the others, but they won't. And I'm saying that. Yes, there will be exceptions.
Yeah.
It's those exceptions we need to target. With those exceptions, if we bring in a Tang Soo Do or a Kempo or a Kung Fu or any other system, and we work with them and we bring it to their knowledge, then they go back to that organization and they become the face to that organization because it's within that organization.
Yeah.
Then they're much more likely to embrace it because it's one of their own who's already taken the risk. It's one of their own that they trust and they can work with. And then they can teach it to them, and then you can come in for quality control. Now, the problem with that is you're not going to make all the money with that business model.
No, but here's the thing too, and I totally agree with everything you're saying, and I like what you said. But maybe, in other words, there should be a sacrifice somewhere.
Yeah.
Is the sacrifice going to be monetarily, or is the sacrifice more systems dying out? You know what I mean? But I agree with you. It's going to be a tough thing. But I like Renee saying, let's create an FMA soap opera, and we'll sell millions. Imagine this. Okay, check this out, guys. Check this out. At 1 p.m. daily, Pikita Terza, the factions in one room talking it out. You're trying to tell me that would not sell? Oh my god!
Yeah, but what's the love angle? Where's the romantic angle?
We already got those. That is funny.
Well, and while you're looking at the questions, see, an interesting.
I'm like, so
this goes around to that was the
I'm gonna be honest with you guys.
Professor Remy, how he was able to reach into and draw others out from other associations, and then went back and taught. I mean, this is way back in the '80s, but that was that was part of his genius there. How he could reach that way.
I'm telling you, I've never been had to keep up with comments like this before. I've never this is.
It's all my fault. I'm sorry, Dean.
It's the Rich and Dan show. We are
entertaining. This was excellent. This was excellent. It absolutely was an excellent contribution, Dr. Kelly. It was absolutely.
Yeah. I've got a copy of that.
Yeah, that was something, huh? Man. All right, here we go. I'm trying to catch up. Possible politics in FMA? No.
I like the soap opera idea.
I think that. Come on, that was. Are you kidding me?
And the person that goes to the hospital doesn't necessarily have to die. They just go off to heal, and then they can come back 6 months later as someone else.
Just like in the legends. Except if I go off to heal, I want to be taught by a deaf person, not a blind person. A blind person's too cliche.
I'm definitely going to bring a broader knowledge from this old school. Yeah, Phil. Absolutely.
Now, back to the old school thing. I get why some people want to do that because they want the personal connection with the students. Yeah, they want to have that absolute quality control, and I respect it.
Sure.
But then on the same side, don't give a negative comment to someone else who's out doing it and spreading it.
I know, and that's what's going on, though. That's
right, because just because there's a difference of opinion on the methodology, it turns into, negativity within the community that isn't necessarily required or needed. As long as they stay connected, then they can go, oh yeah, come to our events, do what you want, participate. If you hold something, we'll do it. But a lot of times they won't. But so then they feel like, well, you're just using me to get more people in. No, your people are getting exposed to us, and us are getting exposed to you. And then everybody's learning and making sure we're not just a small little circle of people going down the wrong rabbit hole. And then that
too, why they're hypocritical too. I'm going to tell you this. So take these backyard mentalities, and I know a few of them. And I'm not saying they're bad guys. I'm not. I'm going to tell you, though, the moment they get invited to a big venue that's put on by a big FMA organization, you're going to tell me they're going to say no and not go to it? Yeah, right. So there's an aspect of hypocrisy that, I'm sorry, that goes along with that from them. The opinion right now, I took a deep breath. All right, Mike, we're glad to hear that you're taking a deep breath, and we hope that you're okay.
Keep breathing. It's healthy for you.
Keep breathing. All right.
In the gathering gloom.
We're going on, this has been incredible. This has been really good. I tell you, if I was watching this and I was in the balance of no or not no, as far as curriculum versus the test versus the evolution through the decades, I think I would leave here with a better understanding.
Good.
I think that's fair. Yeah, and I think
information. Did we have fun? And hopefully everybody else was able to learn and share as well.
Yeah, and I think you guys.
And I think there were a number of just really, really good comments.
Now here's the thing, though.
Their opinion or their viewpoint and so forth. It's no 355, but it's been an awful.
Here's the thing. Okay,
I
so
gotta
are you
check
guys
out what this
familiar?
355 business is, because I think that's been referenced once or twice.
Yes. Are you guys familiar with episode 355?
I am not.
Okay. I cannot watch it without getting teary-eyed. So, so you guys owe it to yourselves. I'm just kidding. To go watch Renee's Growling Dog episode 355. That's all I can say.
I'll make a note of that.
Oh my God. Well said, Dino. Brought to the community of spreading, and yeah, right. I'm telling you, we're gonna die, right, Phil? We're gonna die, or some of us systems are gonna die. Watch from a decade from now, 2 decades from now. You know, some of them are already kind of dead. You look at Lenata, the Screamer, Lenata Arnisa Screamer. You know, when the gentleman there in New Hampshire, the name's escaping me, and I'm very friendly with him, and I think he's the only one actively teaching, and I'm just using that for an example right now. But yeah, so it's going to happen, and it's already been happening. Sadly, you know. Guys, this has been awesome, incredible. Thank you for coming on.
Well, I knew when you'd have Rich and I on, Rich and I would have a great discussion. And
Yeah.
so I was looking forward, Rich, I was looking forward to this. I was really looking forward to this. This is seeing as how you and I are posing the questions, this makes it a different conversation amongst ourselves. But but it was brilliant. I loved it.
Same here, Phil. So. Same here on that. Definitely trying to not let that happen. Yeah, same here. All right, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Your first time, I thought you did incredible, and I want to bring you back in the future.
Very good.
Yeah. So I want to final thoughts. So your experience here, whatever you want to say to the community, outlaws, in-laws, let it go.
All right. So episode 355, haven't seen it. Please understand our fun and enjoyment on this episode should not detract from the emotional feelings of 355. We should be able to do both.
See what? You got cursed. You got cursed.
Yeah, I got cursed. But then the next point I was going to make was, if anybody needs to reach out to me, you can find me in Facebook, website, so forth. My name with Balintwalk or my name with Modern Arnis, you should be able to find me. And then, Dean, I appreciate it. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for inviting me. Dan, thank you for the conversation.
Yeah.
You betcha.
And same to you, Dan.
Yeah, well, same thing. I predicted I was going to have a lot of fun on this, and the prediction came true.
Good.
Everybody out there, you guys gave great statements, great comments. The wonderful thing is, I mean, there wasn't a negative thing in any of the comments. There wasn't anything snarky. There wasn't anything snotty. It was their observations, their opinions, and whether their opinions agreed or disagreed. You know, it was great. It was a discourse. It was a two-way communication. So, and then, Dean, this is what, episode 433? Is that right?
433. Do you believe, if you asked me late October in 2019, pre-COVID, if I would still be doing this, Halford Jones, oh my God.
There you go, Halford Jones. Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah.
You know what? I was actually, this is so ironic because no lie, yesterday I was asking about him because I haven't seen him on Facebook. I haven't seen him, and he's somebody that should absolutely be heard from. So if anybody knows how to get a hold of Halford Jones, please let me know. He's in the New England area. That's the last I heard, but I would love Datu, if you can get a hold of him and let me know, I would love to bring him on. Yeah. So
anyway, to wrap up, I had a great time. Looking forward to when and if I come on again. But the reason why I was bringing up episode 433, Dean, you've done great presenting all of this, having all these guys come out, speak their piece and so forth. I think honestly, I think you've done more from FMA than you honestly realize. by providing a platform for everybody and everyone. Salute to you. Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate it. Sometimes I get so caught up in what's the next episode. I gotta get him on. I told him I would get him on then, and just going down a spiral. Datu, if any means I could get a hold of him, I would love to get him on. He should absolutely be heard. So
Prepare for some blunt talk, man. I've spoken to him on the phone, and
prepare for
he will
sarcasm.
speak
Not
his
sure that
mind.
he's hurt, but okay. Dean's okay. Yeah. Renee. All right. Hey, awesome. All right, guys. Hey, thank you. And if I don't talk to you anytime soon, enjoy the rest of what's left of summer. And Dean, who? Yeah, exactly.
Way to go, Robert.
Love you, Dean.
Dean. Bob. Yeah, we asked Bob Anderson. He declined. Jeff Gonzo, I got to get him back on. Yeah. But guys, take care. Thanks again. And as soon as I get this downloaded, I'm going to throw it up and good to go.
Okie dokie.
Thank you, everyone.
You take care.
Gotcha. Bye, Rich.
Bye.
All right, take care, GM.
Okay, and Dean. God damn it, that's Dan. Dan.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean,
I if you have an overdeveloped sense of propriety,
yeah,
call me your worship. Call me the Godfather or something like that.
Well, I can relate to the Godfather. So, but you got to get a pinky ring. So, okay.
Oh man. Well, looks like I'm out of the running. What can I say? Okay, bud. Have a good night, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that wraps up. I don't even know how many comments came in, but I think there's a lot. Yeah, look forward to the next. Yeah, definitely. Anytime you want to jump on film, I know it's later on your end there. Yeah, but absolutely. Next Thursday. Jason Schultz, WW2 Combatives. If you remember, we had to postpone that show due to him being ill. Well, he's coming on this Thursday. So I'm going to guess around the 7 o'clock mark, maybe earlier. Let me talk to him. Yeah, Phil, if it's earlier, if you want to jump on that one, that would be fun. You can learn about WW2 Combatives. So other than that, I don't think there's anything else new. So hopefully I'll see you guys Thursday. If not, thank you for jumping in, watching, commenting, and those who submitted questions. I'll see you guys next time. Don Dino Franco. That's actually my name in Italian, Dino. Yeah. You're too funny, Phil.